I must commend the Austin Community College for creating this Center for Public Policy and Political Studies. I'm a passionate believer in public service, and indeed that has been my pursuit over all of these years as a lawyer and as a county commissioner. In particular, I want to congratulate y'all on achieving a 10th anniversary of such an event as this. And I want to commend also, I have 6 assistant district attorneys here tonight to act as facilitators, and I'm very proud of them, and I believe they'll probably teach you a lot more than I'm going to. You are here tonight, I'm told, to debate issues that are relevant today to the United States Constitution. I am told that this is a unique event, that there isn't any other event like this with other community colleges. It's the only one of its kind. And isn't that a shame? The quote that I saw on the front of the brochure that Peck gave me, telling me about this center, says, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." You're here to learn, and I'm so proud of you. Because shouldn't every person educated in this country learn about our Constitution? Be involved. That's how you learn. Self-government is a difficult undertaking. Over the many millennia of humankind, devolving to some sort of tyranny has been the norm. Self-government is hard. I've been involved in the making of public policy and the practice of law for decades. It is my observation that we, all of us, tend to be dangerously ignorant of how our governance works. We don't pay nearly close enough attention to how our laws are passed, our leaders are elected, our policies are effected, or where our tax dollars go. We just don't. We've got busy lives. When it comes to the Constitution, we all grow up using terms that come from the Constitution. You know, I'm taking the 5th. Boy, that punishment was cruel and unusual, Mom. I got my right to free speech. And I know every one of you have watched enough television to be able to recite the Miranda rights warnings, right? These are rights that we just take for granted. And they're part of the DNA of our existence. But who of you outside of law students have heard about the Commerce Clause, the Supremacy Clause, the Necessary and Proper Clause? All of them affect you every day. Who among us studies the way that judicial interpretations of the United States Constitution affect things that you take totally for granted? You should. And I commend you because you are here tonight in pursuit of such study. You're here not to just add to your knowledge, but to sharpen skills of analysis and critical thinking. You got to learn to ask questions, because some of the things that you think are set in stone may not be. Let's talk about some of the reasons why that may be important to you and to your fellow Austinites, your fellow Texans, your fellow Americans. In a time when inaccurate information can spread through the internet like a flu virus, when people vote for candidates based upon 7-second sound bites, and when the complications of public service actually deter most people from participating in the democratic process, even so much as to vote, We need to study these fundamental matters ever more thoroughly. It is undoubtedly remarkable that a document written in the 1780s, a time when the colonial population was less than 3 million, and that didn't count the Native Americans, of course, because we didn't count them then, when slavery was legal and women weren't allowed to vote. That document survives today as our central social contract, governing how we all live with each other, resolve our differences, and reach our highest aspirations. Part of this survival is because amendments have been adopted over the years, and part of it's because of judicial holdings that have allowed that document to be adapted to changes in our society. There are those today who will tell you our Constitution is broken. Do you think it is? Do you know enough to even say? There is today a movement, it's led by our own governor, to call a convention of the states to amend the Constitution. Do you know about that? Do you know how many states support it? Do you know what amendments they would propose? I mentioned the Commerce Clause. What if one of those proposed amendments would prohibit the federal government from regulating any activity confined within a single state? Would you support that? What if that activity was growing marijuana and consuming it in your own backyard? That sounds pretty good. But what if that activity is denying customers certain services because of religious beliefs? What if that activity is manufacturing a prescription drug? What if that activity is selling a security just within the state? What if there was an amendment that required Congress to balance the federal budget and limit federal spending? Would you want to know what that would do to Social Security and Medicare? Do you have parents that need that? Would you want to understand what that might do to public transportation that goes across the country? National security? What about disaster relief? We've come to expect that when a hurricane descends upon our shore, we're ready to demand FEMA be there. What if the amendment that limits the spending clause limits it in such a way that we would go back to the years when the Supreme Court ruled that the city of Savannah could not be rebuilt with federal funds when it burned to the ground? What effect would that have on us today and our expectations and our willingness to come together as a nation to help our fellow citizens? What if the amendment allowed a 2/3 majority of the states to override a federal law or regulation? What would that do to our protection of our water, our air that just doesn't seem to know state boundaries, our civil rights? Each and every one of these proposals and more are argued for and against forcefully today, and you may be confronted with choices about what you support and do not support. Do you know enough to discern what you think would be best for you, our community, our state, our country, the world? Do you know enough to weigh the effects such changes might have on your children and their children? I think of the United States Constitution as our center of gravity, our legal center of gravity. Have you ever seen those pictures taken inside a space capsule when the coffee floats out of the cup and the hand tools are floating around. Well, when you change the center of gravity in our legal system, you can have things floating around that before were grounded in decades and even centuries of stare decisis and law. A center of gravity is something that we take for granted, just like the Constitution. Or another analogy. Think of the Constitution as the sun with 50 planets orbiting around it. If the pull of gravity from the sun changes, what changes does that result in on those planets? I love the quote attributed to Benjamin Franklin. It's an often told story, and that when he exited the Constitutional Convention, I hope you've heard it before. He exited and the group of citizens asked him, "What kind of government have you given us, sir?" His answer was, "A republic, if you can keep it." Self-governance is hard. And what he meant by that was it takes the vigilance and education of the citizens to maintain it. If you want it, you have to work hard to keep it. Succeeding in self-governance in the face of the tests of modern pressures may not even be possible unless there are enough of us who take the time to study, to grasp, and to treasure this marvelous creation of 1787. I hope that this exercise tonight will inspire you to take up a lifetime of study, because this messy, difficult, and sometimes crazy form of government has given us all gifts of incalculable value, gifts of freedom, self-development, and aspiration, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. I do appreciate your listening to me tonight. I commend you to your studies, and God bless all of you.
Constitution Day is unique among the celebrations of our Constitution, our annual celebration. Universities and colleges receiving federal funds are required to have some sort of recognition for the Constitution's birthday. What we decided to do at ACC with the Center for Public Policy and Political Studies was to have an event that was participatory, that would involve the students and engage them. So what we've done is we've reached out to the legal community, and we have lawyers and judges, even law professors from the University of Texas School of Law, come and work with ACC students. We've had groups of 500 to 700. We divide them up, assign them to hypothetical, real-world type problems, and the students are asked to grapple with these problems. They're given the help of law professors and the judges and lawyers, and also professors from Austin Community College who are there to urge them on, to get them involved. And it is an incredible opportunity to practice civic engagement in a manner that is civil, amicable, and educational. And who could ask for much more than that? Especially in an era of such vituperative polarization, we here at ACC have created in this event a safe space where people can agree without being disagreeable and explore some of the most fundamental questions of our Constitution. and constitutional law.
What does this paper ask you to do? Three words.
Who shall prevail?
Who should prevail? Now, I heard this gentleman speaking earlier, and it's easy to resolve the question of who should prevail when there's a set of rules. But in most of these cases, in most of these instances, the only set of rules that's really available is sometimes just the Constitution. Most of the times you'll find that there's not a really clearly established set of rules. There was never anybody prior to just last year where this case originated in Kentucky, I believe. You guys remember that? What was the woman's name? Kim Davis. Yeah. Same last name as me. The interesting thing is, until last year, we didn't have any gay marriage. There was no concept of gay marriage. There was no regulation governing gay marriage. There was nothing except this gizmo. So, I like your idea. Let's go back to the regulation. You must have been in the military or something.
Yes.
Okay. And that's how military guys do it. We write it down, and God darn it, you're going to follow the regulation. And the regulation, a lot of times, follows the Constitution. But that's the military, and you know how those guys are. I'm one of them. And they're very, very lockstep. Everything's organized. You're either with us or you're against us. You follow the regulation or you're not. In real life, we don't quite have that level of
Cut and dry.
cut and dry, but really, we don't have that level of social foundation. We just don't have it. Instead, we're allowed to rely on our own ideas, our own morals and ethics personally, and the Constitution. And remember, the Constitution, who does the Constitution limit? Government. This document is all about stopping government from interfering with your liberty. So when you think of the question is liberty. Now, whose liberty should prevail? Should it be the individuals who want to have the interracial marriage? They have liberties. Should it be the individual who's in the government position? They have liberties too, don't they?
I don't think their liberties are being like jeopardized in any way. They are like totally can go outside of that of their job and practice their religion however they please. But if they go to work, they're there to work. And do their job.
How do you, let me ask you this, how do you then impose your idea of what their responsibility is on them when the rules that he calls for aren't written in a way that puts a responsibility on them except for I will issue marriage licenses. And government officials, even individuals, don't they still have liberty interests? So everybody has liberty. The question is, what role does liberty play, and when does your personal liberty stop? I always like to say, you've got a freedom of speech. And if you're insulting with your speech, unfortunately, I fought and have bled in combat to protect that right. But your freedom of speech probably goes as far as my right cross if you start to be offensive to me. You'll take your chances. But the liberty's still there. So that's the rub. The rub is not who's right and who's wrong. The rub is, how do we apply the constitutional protections of liberty to one party or the other, or maybe both? So as you work through this problem, think about that. How do you employ something that violates somebody's deeply held religious concepts and do it in a way that doesn't infringe on their liberty interests?
Comparison of, because right now, in the current day, we have a lot of the different groups that are being used, a lot of the background and research that's done for gay rights or LGBTQ rights, to be politically correct. they're using the backgrounds of what happened in civil rights times. So just like you see Roe versus Wade.
I was just about to say, it's another hot topic, same type of thing.
Right, from that whole 60s period, 60s, late 60s, mid 60s, early 70s, you know, you see all the repeats of that happening here because they're able to use the same substantial argument that was proposed before from the different groups of plaintiffs. What you're seeing the same thing happen again. So the first time when they first saw it, the Roe versus Virginia case, you know, they argued, as far as miscegenation, they argued, oh, well, you know, black people shouldn't be marrying white people because there's a religious issue. And God meant for everyone to be separated, which was a term that was used by one of the judges in Virginia. So Virginia. It wasn't Missouri. I forgot what state they started in, but Missouri, yeah, right. They started in one state and ended up in another. But if you use that viewpoint of that same approach, you could also see that even in other cases that they were arguing the same point. Well, hey, you know what? Now that you're saying this is against my religion to follow up and let people have that practice of miscegenation between two different races. So now you see the same thing happening again, but you see it happening for LGBTQ community-filled people. So the same people that's going up to the battle, whether it be, you know, man marrying man or woman marrying woman, and want to have the same rights, you kind of see the same thing happen. So that's why it was kind of almost, in a sense, like cut and dry, because you're still, in this particular argument, no state is the representation of the person who works for the state. So if you look at it that way, and this is just how I would receive it, is looking at the 14th Amendment. It says no state shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. No state, meaning that she works for that state that we're talking about.
And she's an extension by her job.
Right,
She's an extension
by representation of such. So that's why I was kind of on that side.
Kinda. But I feel like we need to see the other point of view to know what they, what they think, right? Because, for example, I was thinking like, well, it says that the government, in this case the recorder, should not like enforce or benefit any religion. So it means his religion, but it also means that if you're giving them, allowing them to marry, that you're probably also giving a benefit to them. You know what I'm trying to say? So it's like not sure it works both ways. So it's kind of tricky to figure out what's the right answer for me.
He's opposing his own personal compass.
Yeah, so and as he's working in some case for the government, I feel like he's like, this paragraph where he's like
iffy about it.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion?
I agree with him. I mean, yeah, it's against your religion, but I mean, this is your job. You kind of have to. It's sad to say, but you have to put that aside because this is what you're here to do.
You're so strong that
I figured going into it, you should have known that. Well, I mean, of course not. You shouldn't know stuff like this. It's gonna happen. We wouldn't expect it, but I mean, when it happened, you kind of had a decision to make whether to keep your job or ask for a different position, right? So, no, go ahead.
It's not his own business. I mean, he's working for somebody.
Yeah.
It's like say a worker at Walmart that won't cash you out because you're, say, from another religion.
I won't cash you out because I'm Muslim and you're not Muslim. Yeah, exactly. That would be, I mean, that's a touchy subject right now, but the way to make it untouchy is to start using it, right? So, yeah, definitely, I see your point of view on that.
I mean, at that time, though, they were probably like dead set. They believed that if they then certified that like certificate, they were going straight to hell.
Right.
It's hard to like
It's
that.
hard because there are so many views today that, and I'll just put it out there, judge me if you want, but I mean, in a lot of views, I'm very conservative, but the perfect example may be like the topic of whether it's this or abortion. Personally, I don't believe in abortion. I mean, extenuating circumstances, yes. However, that being said, I also don't believe it's the government's place to enforce that upon other people. It may be my view, but it's not my place to judge anybody. I'm not the man upstairs. So I don't think that, but that's my, again, that's my personally, I'm not against it. I mean, I'm against it, but I don't believe that that's something that the government, should be able to enforce my view on somebody else.
I mean, even another point too, though, that you brought it up, Roe versus Wade. I mean, Roe versus Wade, Roe was actually not her name, right? And then by the time the case was over, she actually had changed her mind, starting from when the case had originally started. She ended up keeping the baby.
Right.
So that's an amazing point to use too, because when you kind of think about that.
But but again, with contrary to what my personal views are versus what I think the government should be, I wonder when people take government jobs and positions, is there something that they have, or does I mean, I don't know, I've never held a government job. Are there guidelines that you have to, be unbiased? You can't have, if you take this position, can you, that's a question I'm asking.
Yeah.
Is that something that, or maybe in the future, would that be a criteria that might be able to alleviate these issues if people who have those jobs know going for, and if they say, hey, my religion is going to impact how I do this, I can't, be whatever, the verbiage that's in the 14.
What if that's the only person in the county that wants that job? Just what if?
Is that a decision to
If it's
make?
the only person in the county that wants the job, that's the recorder that's constantly denying the marriages. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, what if that's the only person?
I mean, essentially, that
People
would
are
be
going to go to another county just for that one thing.
I would argue this in a state of realism. That idea of the hypothetical situation of that being the only recorder for that town is.
I'm tired of working.
I'm trying to think about it.
like work
Yeah.
a way
I'm like,
around
hey,
it.
well, even looking at it from the recorder's point of view, yes. Even when I do attempt to put myself in, for lack of better terms, in the recorder's shoes, I still think back to the original point of understanding your duties as you have a position that belongs to the state. And even if you are unsure of something, you could easily argue that right inside of any company or business, especially if it belongs to the state. You could argue that he or she probably should have went to their boss or someone else before they just make the decision.
Because if
based
somebody
upon
higher
their
up who, in theory, their superior ought to be able to step behind them and go, okay, it's against your moral compass here,
Right.
blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And essentially when you look at the
The old question,
Constitution,
where's your supervisor,
and essentially when you read the Constitution, you look at the Constitution, you understand that the Constitution is not set behind emotionalism. So a lot of cases that you have that come in that are based off emotionalism, which is
The one place where the students, there isn't the right answer. They get to say whatever they think, they get to argue whatever position they want, and they get to do it with other students. This isn't talking to a professor, it's talking to each other. And they love it. Our evaluations are through the roof on this thing because this is their chance to talk about current issues and to talk about them in terms that they're interested in and in terms of the U.S. Constitution, which is sort of a vital document. And they get to apply things they've learned in class, or will in some cases, to stuff that matters to them. And we've never had anything other than somewhere between 89 and 92% positive response to this thing.
Nuclear bomb, and they need to search with Geiger counters which residential house has the bomb. If they can determine that there is a house that has the nuclear bomb, they need to go into there and they need to disarm it before it blows up and kills a lot of people.
Pretty much what he said about the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the FBI both have a reason to search this house. When a Geiger camera goes off, I do know from previous research that it is an extreme amount of radiation, which means that this house more than not would possess a nuclear bomb, which would give the most probable cause to search this house. So this is the most probable cause to search a house. There is no reason why we should not search the house. So as it states in this amendment, it does mentions it is Okay, you do not have permission to search a house if it is not a probable cause. This is an extreme probable cause. It actually requires for an elite situation to disarm this bomb and solve this problem. So I think that we should.
It's a reasonable search.
It
That's
is
the
a
word you
reasonable
use.
search.
Write it down.
You should say
Reasonable
that
search.
the lives of
So you're opposed to going in and letting the city blow up?
Yeah.
Okay. So who's gonna try to save the city?
I will.
I don't want to be biased here.
So do I.
Folks, back in 2009, I had the great good fortune to meet Paul Theobald as a student at ACC. He was a founding member of a group called the Center for Student Political Studies. He launched an agenda that literally changed the way students at ACC look at their role as students and most of all as citizens. He's been especially active as an alumni, and tonight we want to say thank you for his assistance at every single one of the 10 events that we have done. He's run the show, he's run the floor, he's made sure that you had your voices heard. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and a little measure of our token of our appreciation to Paul Theobald. Come on down.
I did not expect that. Thank you. I'm just glad to see so many people participating. I believe that we need a informed, engaged, and active democracy in order to survive, so I'm glad that we're here talking about constitutional issues. And I hope everybody here had a good time and learned something, and I can't wait to hear what everybody decided on for their questions and topics. So, thank you.
The FBI had determined that there is a nuclear bomb in the city of Austin, as we have stated before. And yes, this is a probable cause because the Fourth Amendment does not say that there is no right to go into someone's home. It says that there is a probable cause. And this is definitely a probable cause for these following reasons. We have to look at the situation at hand. This is a nuclear bomb we are dealing with. This is a major federal offense that could cost the lives of thousands in the city. And this is the police officer's responsibility to protect the lives of those in the city of Austin. And yes, this is constitutional because it is most definitely a probable cause for the police to search and raid the house of the person who they think contains a nuclear bomb in their home due to the Geiger counter.
Ma'am, well done. I understand, and your passion is clear. You made it clear that there's probable cause. The Fourth Amendment requires probable cause. Was there a search?
Yes, pretty much what we decided at our table as a whole was that having a Geiger counter search for radiation and it being located in a singular home would then lead to a search. So we pretty much interpreted our question as saying that yes, a search was going to be part of this.
Was the Geiger counter reading the levels of radiation in the house?
No.
Did that constitute a search?
Well, no, but we're saying that
how many folks are dealing with this issue? I want you all up there. Go up there. Come on. In the interest, let's have you help each other out, because this is really an interesting question. First of all, let me ask the assembled folks here. When the Fourth Amendment was written, were there Geiger counters?
No.
Did our founders have any clue about this? No. Absolutely not. So my question to you is this, and I don't know if your guide addressed this or not. Does a Geiger counter measuring the radiation emanating from a dirty bomb constitute an intrusion, a search.
Yeah, sure. And then
What do you think?
Hi, my name is Juan. We found it to be unconstitutional. The stipulations was that the radioactivity had to be above normal levels, and we don't necessarily understand what normal levels is. So if the Geiger happens to go off because it saw a microwave, how would we necessarily know? I don't think that we have enough information as far as technology go. And let's just say the nuclear bomb that these guys are, that they have inside someone's home, we don't necessarily know if the technology could make the Geiger go off or make it not read at the levels that whatever normal was. We just don't have enough evidence as far as the
So
normal level.
You're saying that there's insufficient information to resolve this question.
Yes.
Is that the consensus that all of you reached? No. Hannah, what do you say?
I said after speaking with our guide, we had a lawyer come over and ask him about the concept of in public view, which turned into something bigger. I didn't think that using the Geiger counter, going down a public street, something that any citizen could walk down the street and do, constituted a search, because you're not walking into the home, you're not going onto the private property. So I don't think that would violate the person's Fourth Amendment rights in any way. The question doesn't deal with what happens with the evidence found from the Geiger counter, whether or not that is probable cause for getting a search warrant to go into the house. It's simply the fact of whether or not walking down the street using a Geiger counter to measure radiation would be an unconstitutional search. And I did not think there was sufficient evidence to prove that would violate the Fourth Amendment.
Oh, well, I was just on the opposition side, and I said that it was unconstitutional, not because that they were holding the weapon and scanning people's houses, but because they were searching the houses without a warrant, just because they thought that there was an unnormal amount of activity, but they don't know what normal is, so that's why we thought it was unconstitutional.
Yeah, this is a hard question, and you guys wrestled with it, and each and every one of you. And where is my the young lady who was a debater? You, ma'am, passion. Congratulations, well done. We're going to hear more from you. I hope you come to ACC and you sign up for my classes. You guys did a great job. Congratulations. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Our case was between a biracial couple and an elected county recorder, and the problem was that the elected county recorder was a member of the Church of the Literal Testament, and he refused to give a marriage license to a biracial couple, and he argued that in doing so would infringe his First Amendment rights to freedom of religion, and the biracial couple is suing the state of Arkansas, stating that they are infringing on their rights under the 14th Amendment. And the call of the question is who should prevail, and both of our tables came to a unanimous decision that the biracial couple should prevail because under the First and 14th Amendment, their rights trump the rights of freedom of religion of the elected county recorder, because he, in his job, is acting as the state government, and in doing so, he cannot establish a religion because that would go against the First Amendment, and so his rights to freedom of religion are not in play at this point.
It's a violation of the Establishment Clause. That was the argument. Well done. Well done. Yes, indeed. Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Just to add more points on to what she's making to substantiate the argument further in regards to the 14th Amendment, along with the First Amendment, which was also infringed upon by the couple, the biracial couple, that was requesting to have the marriage in a recorder, et cetera, et cetera. Though, upon those same lines, you can use the same grounds of ensured due process clause.
Yes, sir.
And inside those same lines, if you allow me to.
Sure.
The protection against arbitrary state legislation affecting life, liberty, and property as it is offered by the Fifth Amendment. And if we go back to the Fourth Amendment and we use the word no state in the beginning of the 14th Amendment, with the contextualizing of the word no state, state being the example or the exemplary part of the recorder, having the contract with the state being the extension of the state?
Yes, sir.
You understand what I'm? And using that point of view, sir, we came to the unanimous decision that they were infringing upon those rights.
That is a subtle, granular argument, well done, and the 14th Amendment, the strength of the 14th Amendment is one of the issues that you identified, that no state can deny any person life, liberty, or property without due process of law. You're quite right.
And the last piece we wanted to add in there was just using the precedent of the Loving versus Virginia case in 1967.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's the anniversary of Loving versus Virginia.
Yes, sir.
It's nice for us to end on that note, on loving.
Hello, my name is Ariana, and I'm 10 years old in 5th grade, and I go to Burnville Elementary. My group thought the schools unconstitutionally did not hire the Jewish teachers. My first point is the language of the Constitution on page 34, Article 6 states, "No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States." My second point is only Christian and Mormon teachers were hired in public schools. My third point is highly qualified Jewish teacher was not hired. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to say a word about this. This is special. This is you. Congratulations. We have never had a spokesperson from an elementary school come and participate like you just did. Nearly 450 of you participated this night in a conversation about some of the thorniest and complicated issues of our Constitution. You did so in a civil, respectful manner. As they say, you disagreed without being disagreeable. Let me inject a personal view. What happened in this evening should serve as an example to the rest of our society about how to engage in political discourse without being polarizing and insulting and offensive. Our founders would be proud. You did yourselves proud. Thank you and good night.
I gained some knowledge over the Constitution that I did not know before this point, as well as arguing and agreeing with people's statements.
It was fun, and it was good to have a group discussion and debate over how to make a decision on the issues that we were given. Overall, just critical thinking, really. That was the main thing that I got out of this, because a lot of times we hear these things, we learn these things in our classroom, but we actually had to use what we learned. So it made it stick to my brain more. Yeah, to actually apply it, yeah. Yes, so we had the issue on if the War Powers Act was constitutional, and I agreed with it, and so did my group.